what's happening, Roland? Well, today's Friday, and it's time for the Friday update. A couple of good things are happening this week, a couple bad things. Well, starting off with the bad thing, actually last weekend, last Saturday and Sunday, I got chilled. I was out on headwaters, I got kind of wet, been throwing the net, and one thing or other, I caught a cold. Well, here's the problem. It was in the respiratory thing. I got it into my lungs and my sinuses. I'm saying, oh my heavens, I got COVID. You know what I'm going to have to do. So I went down to and had the test. Okay, I don't have COVID. Okay, I had a cold. And I still have a sinus congestion, and I still have a lung congestion, and I'm kind of taking a Mucinex, and I'm just kind of drying up, and I'm feeling really, really good. But anyway, that's the one thing. Now, about a month ago, I had a birthday. March 14th it was, in fact, and I had a birthday resolution. My birthday resolution was I need to lose some weight, get down to a more healthy size, and I figured 180 pounds would be my goal. Well, I got there. I got to 180. And then, in fact, these last week, I'm even a little below that. So, but to do that, here's the whole key to it. I just have to curb my appetite. Instead of taking double portions of everything like I used to, I'm doing single portions, and I'm staying away from the carbs a little bit, but I'm also doing exercises. And I did a whole YouTube thing about how I do my exercises, and basically my exercise regime is I get up in the morning for the most part and do a bunch of sit-ups in bed. It's not a real high level sit-up, but it's exercise. And see, the whole thing about any exercise you do, whether it's walking, running, swimming, jogging, it's getting your heart rate up. And what you want to do is do something where your heart rate gets up around, in my case, around 100, 110, something like that. And then your heart rate gets up that high for like 20 minutes. Now that is the cardio deal. And that is the best thing about exercise, is getting your heart rate up for like 20 minutes. And so I do this little series of exercises, do some sit-ups and push-ups. I do a full military push-up on occasion, but the normal push-up is kind of a crunchy little deal, and I do like 30 or 40 of them. I could probably do more, but not a full military. It's not a full military push-up. I don't think I could do but 30 of those. But anyway, I'm still but the lighter you are, here's the other thing. Now that I'm 175, 178 pounds, I can do more push-ups. I'm not as heavy. So it's easier to do a push-up than it was when I was 210 pounds. So it's like 30 pound difference. So that's a big deal. So my exercise plan's working out. I'm so happy that happened. I'll tell you what else is working out that's really good is my guide work on the Headwaters Lake. I'm guiding 4 and 5 days a week. Go home to Naples a couple days. But here's the thing: I'm satisfying so many people. Now, the average person that I take fishing has probably not caught an 8-pound bass. Some of them have. Some of them caught 8-pound bass, and I get them sometimes bigger bass in their personal best. But so often, the average person I guide is probably only caught maybe a 6 or 7-pound bass, and I can normally get him his personal best on that kind of a deal. I really try hard. And one of the ways to do it, of course, you can catch them on artificial. And I'm a big Cinco fisherman, and I love to fish topwater. But the best way is a shiner. The big golden shiners. And I've specialized in that. I have special oxygen tanks. I have special chemicals like salt that promulgate the slime coat. And I have all sorts of stuff like methylene blue, which inhibits the cells of the gram-positive bacteria. It kind of smothers them and they die. So it's a bacteria stat kind of deal. That and acroflavin. Acroflavin is another gram-positive kind of a chemical that kills the bacteria in the water. Okay, and then you got to cool the water down, kind of keep it at the right temperature, and you don't want to crowd them. When you catch them in the nets, you got to be careful of them, because the scale, if you knock a bunch of scales off the fish, that's kind of a kiss of death, because the scale and the slime coat of a shiner, or of any fish for that matter, is critical to its good health. So you got to be real careful when you handle them, and don't bang them up, and don't knock their scales off, and don't knock the slime off. And if you do everything just right, you can keep those things, for a day or two, and they'll really do well. Now, my secret in catching so many big fish at headwaters is that I pride myself in having the most and the best bait. That's the criteria. Now, you can go buy bait. Sure, I mean, everybody buys bait. But I don't buy bait. I catch my own bait. And the reason I don't buy bait is that, number one, by catching my own bait, I have fresher bait and I have more bait. But here's the deal. The guys that buy bait, and they'll buy 6 and 8 dozen at a time sometime, and they get by pretty good bait, but they don't always have bait. Sometimes the bait shops just run low. And this time of year, everybody's buying shiners, and sometimes you can't get enough shiners. So here I am, particularly in the afternoons, when half the other guys on the lake have maybe run out of bait, I have another fresh bunch of shiners. Because what I start off with in the morning is like 4 or 5 dozen from the day before. Then about 10 or 11 o'clock, I chum my holes with this hog food, and then I throw my cast net, and of course I get another 8 or 10 dozen for the rest of the afternoon. Now I have the liveliest bait on the lake. Now it's afternoon, and everybody else is out of bait. I have good, fresh, lively bait jumping all over the place, and those big 6 and 8 pound bass are going nuts over them. So that's the secret of my success, having the most and the best bait. Well, okay, that's Headwaters, and we had a pretty good run of it this last week. Well, then I went home and got ready for my big trip. Let me tell you about my big trip. I'm going up to Missouri. I'm driving to Missouri, Springfield, Missouri. I'm going to be with Johnny Morris. And you know how we talked about last week, he had a 50th anniversary for the Bass Pro Shop, and I was up there with Jimmy Houston and Bill Dance and all the other luminaries from the big pro guys from Bass Pro Shop. Well, this week is a little different. It's a new thing called Cast and Blast. And what Cast and Blast is, it's a special event that Johnny has in some of his properties up there. He has lakes and places to hunt, and we go turkey hunting is the last part. And the cast is these lakes. It's some old pits that he has that he's reclamated, and great fishing. So we do a combination of hunting and fishing, but it's all for conservation. In the last couple of years, we'll have guys like Richard Childress, the race driver. We'll have guys like Jimmy John, the sandwich guy. We'll have other really good, big-time industrial people that have lots of money and that believe in conservation and they contribute to conservation. And Johnny has dozens and dozens of these guys coming up for that Cast and Blast. And believe it or not, they raise sometimes about $1 million a year. And as I've said many times, Johnny Morris is the modern day Teddy Roosevelt. You know, he's always raising money for conservation, and he's raised well over $100 million now just in the last 15 or 20 years, and that's his whole passion. You know, last week when we were up for the 50th anniversary, if you remember, we had a big deal. We raised over $2 million with all the concerts with Hank Williams Jr. and John Anderson, the guy that does the Seminole Wind, and he's a fishing buddy of mine as well. And Luke Bryant, another fishing buddy, he did a big concert too. And so all this money that came from these concerts went to conservation, over $2 million. Plus all the sales in the big store. It was just a week. It was a whole week of seminars and good times and beautiful meals, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, but raising $2 million. Well, that brings me up to yesterday. Well, yesterday had kind of a unique thing happen. Angelo Viola, he has a show up in Canada called Fishing Canada. He and his sidekick is Pete Bowman. Pete Bowman and Angelo Viola have that show, and they also have a podcast. So my son Scott and I were featured on the Fishing Canada podcast last night, and what the whole gist of it was Scott is he's his own person. He's now fishing the Elite Series, and he's made his own way in the industry. He has different sponsors than I do. You know, I've helped maybe open a door or two, but that's not the deal. My son Scott has opened his own doors, done his own thing, and he's an independent guy. And he's gone past a lot of the things I ever did. So he's just on top of the world, on top of his fishing game. He has a great social media that I've never. He got me started in social media, and I got that going. But his is great big. Then he gets all these other forms of social media as well. So he's really, really set the stage as a professional fisherman. He's the most social media conscious guy out there. and I'm kind of following in his footsteps. At least that's my goal. But anyway, that's where I'm going now. I'm fishing up after that big podcast, and Scott explained last night to all the Canada fishing in Canada viewers and listeners, where he came from and his career and what his goals are for the future. So it was really a special podcast. Lasted over an hour. But right now I'm on my way to Missouri. Hey, I'm going to shoot a turkey as well. I'm going to do some YouTube fishing. I'm going to fish some of those ponds. I'm going to show you some great techniques. Show you how to fish the worms, how to fish spinnerbaits, how to fish buzzbaits. I'm going to do a lot of how-to videos, and I'll have them on the YouTube as well. Hey, thanks for watching. It's great talking to you guys and girls, and we'll see you again soon.